Welcome to the show. As you can see, we've got Dr. Jon Ward with us, and he has been a big vocal opponent of the coming of April 20th, where voters are going to have a chance to vote, get this, to raise property taxes one whole millage rate. Now, yesterday, I had Superintendent Bill Husfeld with us, and he told us what it would do and how it would benefit the employees and mental health programs and so on and so forth. Dr. Jon Ward, more than anybody else in the area, has been opposed to it. And he's done a whole lot of research. I, too, am opposed to it. And so I've asked Dr. Jon Ward to join us and to fill us in because he knows a lot more about it than I do. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ward.
Yes, Bernie, thank you so much for having me on. I'm loving the new format that you've got here.
Thank you so much. I am, too. And thanks for being on my very first week. I appreciate it. So first of all, what got you so focused on this, Dr. Ward? After all, it's supposed to help the schools and the employees and all the programs that need so much help.
So really what got me was the amount of the ask, because, I'm always a little bit skeptical when it comes to the government asking the taxpayers for more money. But the first question I saw, 1 mil. Well, what is 1 mil? And not everyone, can put that in perspective. So when I look to see, what do I currently pay for school board tax? Well, right now we pay about 5.9 mils that go toward the school board. So I was like, well, if we add another mil, then that's going basically from 5.9 to 6.9. From a percent standpoint, that's a 16% increase in property taxes that the school board is asking for us. And that ask seemed big, so it caught my attention. So the next question that I kind of asked myself was, well, I know Bay County and Bay District Schools is not necessarily seen as one of the strongest districts in the Panhandle. Let me see what two similarly sized, but academically and ranking wise, stronger districts are doing. Are they requiring their citizens to pay another mill? And when I looked at Okaloosa County, which has about 8,000 more students than we have, if they're doing it, they're not. And then I looked at Santa Rosa County, which has another I think they're like 28,000 students, so about 4,000 more. And I saw they're not doing it. So, that was just one of those things where I was like, gosh, the other districts that are doing better than us don't need extra money. Well, why do we need more money? And
right,
the state Department of Education has a great website. I encourage anyone interested in learning more to go to the state of Florida Department of Education website, because they've got thousands of pages of data that you can go through. They'll show you how much money each district gets from state and local sources. They'll show you how much districts get from federal sources. They'll show you how many, what the expenditures per student are. And what I found is that our revenue per student, which is taxes that we're getting, was above other counties in our area. And our expenditures were above other counties in our area. So, I said, Houston, we have a problem. It's not a revenue problem. It's a spending problem.
Yeah. And the Department of Education in Florida, the commissioner, Richard Corcoran, was the Speaker of the House just about 3 years ago. And I think he's a terrific, actually, Commissioner of Education. I don't say that often. But have you had a chance to talk to Commissioner Corcoran at all about any of this?
I've not spoken to Commissioner Corcoran, but I have spoken with his chief of staff at the Department of Education, Alex Kelly. They've been a tremendous resource at helping me get data and information about how funds can be used.
Yeah, I want to show a screen. It isn't all that. Yeah, there we go. How will 18.3 million increase in cash be spent? 10.4 million for salary increases. And it says when using a property tax increase to generate a salary increase, the take-home pay for staff is reduced. Approximately 50% of the benefit will pay a 3% increase for staff is offset by a property tax increase of $1 million. So I guess what that is saying is one of the great lessons, Dr. Ward, that I've learned in doing this for, really almost a quarter of a century, but doing it in this format for about 14 years, is whenever we look at a policy, we shouldn't only look at what is seen, the increase in the paychecks, but we should also look at what is not seen, right? As you're pointing out here, there are offsets in government, probably as in medicine. There are very few solutions, but there are a whole lot of trade-offs.
Absolutely. The people aren't thinking that on that increase, they're going to pay income tax at an average rate of slightly over 20%. And then they're going to have to pay their property taxes, which in May County, the average home price is just under $250,000. Most teachers actually make above the median income if they have a two-family income. So if you say they have a $300,000 house, that's $300 a year that they're going to pay. So if you look at a typical increase, half of that increase that they're going to see get eaten up by new property tax and their income tax. And that's just something, it sounds great. You're going to get $2,000 more a year, but actually you're taking home about $1,000 more a year.
So I can see in the comments, I just looked at the comments, that there is some feedback, and I'm going to see if we can work it out. Let me know if you're watching, if it's improved at all. And so I've turned my speaker down just a little bit, Dr. Ward. If you turn yours down just a little bit, we'll see if this helps out a little bit at all. So when I talked to Superintendent Husfeldt just yesterday, and he was talking about how this will generate about $18 million, as you said, I never see it that way. I see it as $18 million will be taken away from the family budget. That's how I view it. My headline, if I ran a newspaper, would never say that the tax will generate $18 million. It would say that it will suck it away out of the real economy and out of the hands of the people. That's the way I view it. If you're a conservative, you probably see it very similarly.
Absolutely. I have a lot of the patients I care for are 65 and older. They're on a fixed income. Many of them own homes. And, one patient I saw today was like, hey, City of Panama City just hit me for a $400 fire assessment. I'm looking at, a few $100s more a year with this. And, so now, one vacation I normally take a year, I probably can't take that vacation, that I would normally take. It's a trip for someone on a fixed income. And these aren't people who can just go out and earn more money. They're on a fixed income and they own a home. And I think that anytime people are willing to take away from their neighbors to give themselves a little bit more, I think they should feel a little guilty about that.
Yeah, I do too. And I'll tell you, especially at this time, Dr. Ward, with COVID and with many homeowners who, have lost jobs, have lost income, have lost businesses, to ask more of anybody, not ask. Well, I guess it's asking because it's a referendum, but those who aren't for it are not being asked. And a lot of them don't even have kids. And that was something that was pointed out with Superintendent Husfeldt, a question that was recommended. I asked him. And again, it's one of those, what is seen and what is not seen. I believe there are going to be a whole bunch of homes being built, more people moving into the community. With the St. Joe development, a lot of retirees. That's going to generate a lot more revenue for the school system right there, even without this 4-year ad valorem tax.
Absolutely. The other issue that I'm actually working with the property appraiser office to get an exact number on is they've given a lot of rebates on people's assessed value because of Hurricane Michael. Mm-hmm. And in this next year, a ton of those rebates go away because those houses will have been repaired. So I'm trying to get a handle on exactly what the dollar figure there is. I mean, we could be going from, last year's 2021 budget was based on 18.8 billion. I think this next year's budget, I'm hearing 10% is an increase not counting the Michael rebates. You could probably count on us being 20 to 21 billion of a tax base, and that's going to generate so much more income in and of itself without putting another mill on the ballot.
Yeah, I got to say I'm voting no on it. And one reason I'm voting no, Dr. Ward, is because I find it deceitful. It is not a 4-year 1% hike on the millage, because once they do that, they're going to have to keep doing it. And that's going to be the argument in 4 years. It's what, government just doesn't cut back. This is going to be a forever millage increase. And I wish that they would just be honest and say so, which leads me to this question. You've done all of this research. You're a research expert. You're a medical doctor, and you're a specialist. You're a dermatologist. You know how to do research. Has the research been forthcoming to you, or has it been difficult at times to get public records and information?
So if I did not have someone at the Florida Department of Education to get me the data I needed, I would be having a much harder time. I would say Chuck Purdue at the tax collector's office has been very helpful. I would say there's the gentleman, I don't know his last name, but his name is John, and he's at the property appraiser's office, also very helpful. I have sent in some public records requests to the Bay District schools. I got hit back with, can you be more specific? Can you elaborate on this? I never really even got to the point of, basically you need to be really specific, or it's going to cost you a lot of money to get the records that you need. And
that's one of my pet peeves, as you probably know. Wow.
Yeah. And they know, they just put up enough roadblocks. And then, again, I had the Department of Education kind of giving me all of this data. So I didn't need to go through the headache of what I had to deal with Bay District schools. I think transparency is great. I think that, Richard Corcoran, when he was in the legislature, he ran on transparency. And I think that's what he's doing. When all I need is a document that someone in your department has emailed to me, it shouldn't cost me anything, and it should be in my hands within 24 hours. Bay District schools have no excuse except for the fact that they don't want the data shared.
Yeah, I tend to agree that it's more difficult than it should be to get public records. There are a few exceptions in Bay County, but I would agree with you. I'm going to put the referendum up on the screen, and I'm going to read it. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I'm going to read it, and tell me after you hear this what pops out to you. So this is what we'll be voting on April 20th. It's the referendum to approve ad valorem levy for operation costs, including teacher and support salaries. Everybody, all employees will get a raise. School safety, mental health services, pre-K programs. And the question that's being asked of taxpayers is, shall the Bay County School District levy an ad valorem tax for $1 million for 4 years for necessary operating expenses, sharing funds with charter schools proportionate to student enrollment, which will be about 20%, with expenditure review by a citizens oversight committee. Operating expenses shall include funds to raise salaries of teachers and district employees, recruit and train highly qualified teachers, enhance school security, mental health services, and pre-kindergarten programs. And finally, and fund other operations that preserve school programs. What are your thoughts on that?
The reason that last part is highlighted is because it is the line that everyone should focus on, and it means that the money can be spent on whatever the school district wants to spend it on. Superintendent Husfeld continues to say we had to put that in because charter schools don't have pre-K programs. That is, it says mental health services, it says teacher salaries, it says, security. Guess what? Charter schools have all of those things. So if it was really meant for just those things, that's all, okay, the charter schools don't have pre-K. Well, they'll have more money to spend on teacher salaries and mental health and the other things. So I think that it just doesn't, it does not pass the sniff test. That's why that line is in there.
Here's another thing that has bothered a lot of people, and I'm sure it has you too. When the Bay County School Board, when they voted to put this on the referendum, and then they said, look, it's going to be up to the people. They didn't have to vote to put it on there. They voted to put it on there. And at that time, we didn't know that they were going to get like $25 million in federal funding here, another many millions of dollars in federal funding there. So it seems like while most people, a lot of people are hurting, their budgets are hurting, the school district is bursting at the seams, but their answer is they just can't move money around, Dr. Ward.
And some of that is true, and I don't necessarily disagree 100%, but the $25 million that they just got from the ESSER II funding that they act like they didn't know about, that CRSSA Act actually passed 2 weeks before they put this on before they had the meeting where they voted on it on January 26th. So they're probably, I think they're just like me in my business. So back when the PPP program was coming out, before it got voted on, I knew exactly what the language of the law was the day it passed, because my business depended on it. We're talking about, we had game planned out, what if we have to cut our staff 50%? What if we have to cut our staff 25%? And what if we do get money that makes us not have to make tough decisions? And literally because we have 1 month of money in the bank to operate our practice before we have to take emergency loans. So the school board they knew they were getting $25 million of money. It's ludicrous to me that we just didn't know because we didn't get the official notice from the state. They follow legislation just like we follow legislation. Yeah. And I don't buy that they didn't know. No, they may not have known the American Rescue Plan had not passed yet. They didn't know how much money of that they were getting, and they probably still haven't admitted that they're getting $56 million. It's a very easy formula. That's how much money they're getting of American Rescue Plan Act money.
Yeah, here's the main reason that I oppose it, and that I oppose most of these kinds of things, and it's that right there. We don't trust local government. At least I don't, and a lot of people don't. It's really I hate to use this term because this is a term that politicians use, but it seems to be really bad optics right now. They always consider optics. I mean, the school board has been subpoenaed in a federal investigation. They're getting money hand over fist, federal money anyway, and most people aren't in a position to want to be paying more for property taxes. For one thing, philosophically, I consider property taxes to be a very insidious tax. If I could do away with certain taxes, I would do away with the death tax, the estate tax. I would do away with property taxes. Those are two of the first ones I would do away with. To keep raising people's property taxes, it is just awful.
Yeah, and it affects everybody, even people who aren't wealthy. People think, if you own a home, you must be wealthy. There are a lot of people who don't have a lot of money who own a house. They inherited a home, or they're on a fixed income. I can afford this tax. I don't want to pay this tax, but I can afford it. There's so many people out there who just can't afford it.
Somebody had a question about charter schools, and Laura did a good job answering it here. I just want to point out that charter schools are public schools. They're funded by taxpayer dollars, but they don't fall under the school board's auspices. They have their own board that helps decide how money's spent. One advantage of charter schools is they don't have the problem that normal public schools have, and that is what we keep talking about, and that is this money can't go here and that money can't go here because they have a board of directors. They're much more flexible and nimble with the money that they get. And that's one reason I believe that charter schools have the opportunity to be more successful. So I just wanted to answer that. You had given me a couple of documents, and I'm going to put a couple of them up for people to see. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on them. One of the documents you gave me, it says deputy superintendent, and which, by the way, I don't even believe there should be such a position. But what is that document, and why did you want me to have it?
Well, you know, what I found that was obvious to me when I started looking at other school districts, and what about Bay is different, is for the number of students we have more administrators than much larger districts. And you know, and everyone talks about the Nelson building. Well, I think there's a reason people keep talking about it. And then we're in the middle of this, you know, I've pointed out the fact that we have more administrators, and it's just so funny. You know, I feel like, I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, but Varys was the one that had all the kids coming to him with information and whatnot. So you know, I've been starting this campaign. So on Facebook, my messenger box is always full of stuff. And someone sent that to me, and I'm like, no, they are not hiring 2 deputy superintendents. By the way, the deputy superintendent position is the second highest paid position on the pay scale. You got the superintendent, you had 1 deputy superintendent, and they're like, well, let's have 3 deputy superintendents. I mean, it was,
I don't understand that at all. I really don't. So I guess the point there is, you know, when you get a bunch of money, and even Superintendent Husfeld admitted, you know, geez, the federal government's spending money like crazy, and it's going to get to the point where we have to find ways to spend it, but we can't move it over here. And that's the problem with government, is that it's too clunky like that, and it encourages waste. But when we hear stories like you just talked about, the second highest paid salary in the school district is the assistant superintendent. I have a problem with that position even existing.
Yeah, I hear you. And then to say that they're so busy that one person can't do it all now, and they don't even say, oh, we need 2. They're like, oh, no, we need 3. And I do take a little bit of umbrage with the idea that you can't use the federal money to pay teachers and other staff. So, you know, I've done my own research. I've spoken with the Department of Education, and even Governor DeSantis. I haven't spoken with him, but he's taking so that ESSER money that went to the district, 12.5% the state retained. So the state of that big pot of state money, the state got to keep 12.5, and the governor said, "Hey, look, we want to reward all those hardworking teachers and principals, and we're giving a $1,000 bonus as quickly as we can into the hands of teachers and principals." Yeah. So to say that you can't use it to pay teachers is disingenuous. The governor's already disproven that. When I talked to someone in the Department of Education, they're like, absolutely, you could give retention bonuses. I said, well, it says that you can retroact this back to 2020, and the ESSER 2 money is good through September 30th, 2023. I said, could you like take, 5 million, retroact it, 5 million do it for this year, 5 million do it for next year, 5 million do it for that fiscal year that includes part of September 30th. And they said, well, yeah, I wouldn't see why you couldn't do that. I think a lot of this too is we've always done it this way. We're going to keep on doing it this way. It's like when I first got to Bay County and I went to the tax collector's office to get my car tag changed and my driver's license changed. I don't know if you remember the old tax collector, her name was Peggy Brannon. I had to write a check. I had a credit card, I had a debit card. I didn't have enough cash, and literally I was like, it's 2006. don't take credit or debit card? And literally no. And then, you know, obviously Chuck has come in there and he's totally changed. You can do so much. You don't even have to go in for most of the things anymore. The school district needs that. They need someone who isn't part of this system, who have learned there's only one way to do it. We need someone who can think outside the box and say, if it's not illegal to do it this way, why don't we do it a different way?
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, that's so interesting. I am a small government guy, so it's very weird for me to say that the tax collector, Chuck Perdue, is the most creative and efficient elected official, in my opinion, in Bay County. And it's, to me, not even close. I mean, he's really impressive. What he's done, you know, everybody makes promises when you run for office, and he did them quickly. I mean, it used to be a joke, you know, do you want this agency to turn into the DMV or the property appraiser? Well, now, if it's like the way he runs it.
Well, and for me talking to him, he didn't have to reinvent the wheel. There were other tax collector offices doing exactly what he wanted to do. So he just had to go there and say, show me what you're doing. We're going to do that here. I think there's an amazing opportunity, if someone's willing to do so, to go to Okaloosa County and say, how do you just get the dollars that the state has said you need and still pay your teachers more than we pay our teachers? You know, one of the things Superintendent Husfeld mentioned when I pointed out the difference in staffing, well, they outsource a lot of their stuff and we don't outsource anything. Maybe they outsource things that's not their primary mission. The primary mission of a school district should be educating children. That should be job 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Amen.
Everything else should come secondary. And if there's a private company that can do it better and can do it less expensively, outsource it. That if it's not about teaching children, be willing to outsource it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Here's something you sent me. It's the relationship between total state and local funding enrollment. And then on the other side is state and local funds per student. And tell me a little bit about that graph that you sent.
Sure. So this was one of the first pieces of data that the Department of Education really provided to me that helped me kind of put it all into perspective. And what you're seeing here is how much of the FEFP money, that's basically the formula the state uses to figure out how much money they're going to give you. It includes your local contribution and then the state funding. It excludes all federal funding. And basically you can see from 2011 all the way through 2017-18, right before the hurricane, the student population was going up, as was the funding level. So the funding levels were more and more. And then when the hurricane hit, the student population went down, but the state actually helped out the district quite a bit and didn't take the funding level down to the level that was proportional to students. The district did great finding ways to spend that money, but and granted, there was a hurricane. This is operational money, which is different from capital money. So fixing buildings, that shouldn't actually be operational money, So the state did supplement them so that they didn't have to make some draconian cuts. And then the very last one, I was just demonstrating, if we pass this and they get $18 million of more revenue, you'd go from basically 6,100 of state and local funding per student in 2011-12 up to 8,500. I mean, you're talking 30% more money per student in less than a decade. So that just really spoke against the fact that there's enough money there. It just needs better management.
One of the things that for more than a dozen years has really bothered me is it seems that the teachers get what I call the fuzzy end of the lollipop. They, for more than a dozen years, I've seen teachers have to reach into their wallets or their purses and pay for basic school supplies in their classroom. And at the same time, over the past dozen years, I've seen school districts spend millions of dollars on new buildings, new construction projects that go way over budget. We all know the stories here. So what really is frustrating to me is that while the teachers were suffering, and I think they were, and while the teachers were told that they can't, do their craft to their individual students, but rather everything became so cookie cutter, and with very little consideration that every individual student has his own individual needs or her own individual needs. So I just feel like while more money has gone into public education, teachers should never have had to spend that money on their own supplies and ask parents to kick in and spend money and do all of the sort of things that they do. And again, this is a criticism of government in general and the legislature and the politicians and the teachers unions. But the people who need it most are the students and the teachers. And it seems to me, Dr. Ward, like they get it the least.
Yeah. Well, I can say as a parent whose kids are at the public school in Walton County, we do get the, hey, can we need snacks, we need this, we need that, and unfortunately we've got a good parent group there who always steps up and does what they need. But the teachers are definitely, the first day I realized, hey, this teacher really, they spent, I would guess $100 or more getting their classroom ready, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, there's some reimbursement program where they can get that back. I don't know for sure if there is or if there isn't.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious about this. You've really, really spent a lot of time. You're a busy guy. You're a dermatologist in Florida. So you're super, super busy, very, very successful. You've been plugged into local politics. You've backed candidates. You're a conservative guy, but you really have taken a lot of your extra time and spent it on this. Why is this so important to you? You can pay the extra tax. You know how some people say you can pay the extra tax. You're not poor, Dr. Ward. In fact, you're doing really well. But this has really struck a nerve with you. And does it tie into anything else with local government? Because as I say, a lot of people don't trust local government. I know that it's this whole thing has been a little deceptive about needing the extra money and just the way it's been presented. I guess I'm asking, what really drives you when you have so little time to focus on stuff like this?
So first thing is I don't sleep well. So I often have my phone or my computer, and I'm just like, my brain has questions. So and I will say that the ease of the Florida Department of Education website to get answers, it definitely kind of fed the question. I've identified for sure one of the biggest issues that I have recruiting professionals to come into Bay County is the school district. It is one of the things that you ask your professionals who are trying to get other professionals coming here. It's a huge issue. We do have an issue getting people who have masters and above level degrees to come into a district that's 33rd in the state. We're barely in the top 50% at this point, and most of the great schools happen to be charter schools. So when someone comes and they're like, yeah, you may want to buy a house on Sweet Bay so that your kid can go to UA, and then or they ask about, well, what about getting into North Bay Haven? And you're like, they reserve extra spots for military, so it's really tough there too. And then you're like, but then they're looking at, well, gosh, well, the private school only goes through 8th grade. I want and I need the school system here, and I know it can be great. I know it can be. And it just, that was the first thing. And then the second thing is, once I got into it, I could feel the deception. I accepted a meeting to go meet with the people at the district office, even though, what's the harm in meeting? And then I felt like, at a budget workshop, comments were made like, oh, we met with someone on this day and he wasn't really interested in learning. And I was like, wait a minute, I spent like 45 minutes sitting patiently, listening to you guys explain much of what I'd already knew because I'd done my own research, and the State Department website is fantastic talking about this. But then, and then I waited and asked my questions. And because I left still not thinking we needed a tax increase, I wasn't interested in learning. And that's said at a public meeting that they put on their website. So, I just felt, and then the lies and misinformation thing gets said over and over again. And I'm like, the lies and misinformation is either your budget or the numbers that you provided to the state of Florida that they put on their website.
Yeah.
So
the information, when you research this, you're using their data, right? I mean, if you diagnose somebody and you misdiagnose it, unless you get lucky, you're not going to help them get better, right? So again, you're trained at this. You're a scientist. You know that if you misdiagnose it, if you bring in bad data, that you're going to come up with bad solutions. And I don't think that you're looking for bad solutions here. Even when you and I disagree and fight each other, you're not looking for bad solutions. You're looking to improve things. I know that.
Absolutely.
And you're getting your information from there, right? Are you pulling information anywhere, data anywhere that they don't have, that they don't see?
I mean, every piece of actual data has either been from the State Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, because I did get the ESSER formula from the U.S. Department of Education, or the Bay District Schools budget information on their website. Every piece of data was taken from that. Or actually, I used some off of the property appraiser's website and tax collector website too, because I've actually kind of shown how the millage. The only portion of millage that's changed over time has never gone down. It's actually gone up. What the school board has discretion over is there's a operational discretionary millage and a local capital improvement millage. And since 2010, that local capital improvement millage has done nothing but go up to the maximum they're allowed.
Yeah. So if we were to distill this down, first of all, if there's anything that we haven't touched on, I want to give you a chance to touch on it. But if we were to distill it down, maybe the top 3 reasons why you're voting no and why you've advocated for others to vote no. I'm voting no, and I advocate for others to vote no. One of my big reasons is because it is not a 4-year millage increase. It is a forever millage increase, and property taxes are already too high. That's one of my main things. But what would you say if somebody asked you in just a few sentences?
Well, the first thing is that if Okaloosa and Santa Rosa County were both doing this, I would have given it much more credence, because I think we should be doing what the top school districts in the state in our local area are doing. And I no reason to reinvent the wheel. Do what the really good districts are doing. And if other districts were having the same issue who were performing well, I would have been much more on board with the concept. So if the good districts aren't doing it, I don't think we should do it. Superintendent Husfeld says 21 districts in the state have a millage increase. That's less than a third. And by the way, only 10 increased to the full mill. So we're talking less than 15% that have done a 1 full mill increase, like proposed here. So that would be reason 1. Reason 2 is that I don't trust local government either, and especially given that documents have been subpoenaed. Fortunately, this last audit they did was good, but the audit before that had 10 major deficiencies. I think there are questions surrounding the school budget that just, again, if you're someone who doesn't trust government and then you've got more questions, I would love to hear that Bay District Schools budget is fine and that the document subpoena have been totally cleared. But we haven't heard that. No one said that Bay District Schools is in the clear on all that. So until I hear that, I've got questions. And the last thing is, I'm a low tax. I believe in low taxes. I think me and you and everybody else out there knows how to spend our money better than the government, and that includes the school district. And so I just don't, I don't think that they know better at how we need to spend our money.
Mm-hmm. Now, and I know that these dollars are supposed to be allocated, a lot of it anyway, for raises for all employees, but that's not the only thing it's going to. There, I can see. Let me pull it up again. I'm going to read the actual ballot language right here. Shall the Bay County School District levy an ad valorem tax? All right, to do these things. Operating expenses shall include funds to raise salaries of teachers and district employees. Recruit and retain highly qualified teachers. Okay. Enhance school security. Now, so far, I can see these things. Mental health services. I have a real problem with that because I think that's not as straightforward. Everybody wants to have more mentally healthy kids, but I know that they are Baker acting kids at a high rate. And I think there is a relationship there with funding that makes me very, very uncomfortable. I don't like it. I don't like the questions asked to kids under that umbrella. Pre-kindergarten programs. See, now we're getting into things, Dr. Ward, that are very discretionary. And I think those dollars should remain in what I call the real economy, because dollars that are earned rather than awarded by politicians, dollars that are earned make us, it makes us better all around. I think private dollars are productive dollars. Government dollars are often wasteful dollars, and they're awarded to friends and supporters. And I want to see more tax dollars in the hands of the people who earned it, and not in the hands of politicians who will award it to somebody else.
You brought up one more thing that I would be remiss if I did not comment on. And of the 4 things that were listed on that referendum, the only one that is not an accounting gimmick is the teacher and district salaries. Let me explain to you why enhanced school security is an accounting gimmick. So Mr. Husfeld says that the state only gives them $890,000 a year, or it's up to 1.9 million, but they need 3.5. He says we need another 1.5 million. Okay. They've been funding that 1.5 million from somewhere for the last 4 years. So you can't say, I need new money to pay for this 1.5 million that we've already been funding from operations. Mm-hmm. So basically it's like saying, give me this money so I can spend that 1.5 million somewhere else, but I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to spend that 1.5 million on somewhere else. It's the accounting equivalent of double dipping. Mental health services. So they say, oh, well, you know, we're spending, we got this big grant. So with the hurricane, we're spending over 5 million a year on mental health services. Well, guess what? With the ESSER federal money, it specifies there, guess what? You can spend that on mental health services, and that's through 2023. And I agree with you. The primary mission of Bay District schools shouldn't be providing mental health to students. It should be educating students. I'd feel much better if they outsourced mental health and they weren't doing the mental health, and someone who actually, like an entity that was a mental health entity was administering mental health, not
yeah,
the
school. You're in the health profession. You're a specialist. You're a medical doctor. And that, you know, you've got to, as we said earlier, you've got to diagnose the problem properly. And you and I know that as soon as the diagnosis becomes politicized, and we see more and more every day how these things are becoming politicized. Yeah. And when tax dollars start pouring in to support it, then parents have less of a say of their kids' own mental health. I don't want to see any of this politicized. I don't want to see your craft politicized, and I don't want to see the mental health craft politicized.
Yeah. And then the last thing, pre-K is not even part of the K through 12 budget. Yeah, I had this whole conversation with the chief of staff of the Department of Education. So pre-K is its own thing, and they have these early learning coalitions. So for instance, our district's early learning coalition is a 7-county coalition. So all of the federal and state funds for pre-K goes to an early learning coalition. And the chief of staff at the Department of Education in Florida told me less than 10% of pre-K is actually administered even through the school system. So he said Bay District schools is a really odd beast in the school system here, even doing the VPK. So that is actually a totally different thing. Like it's not normal for the school district to be the primary entity giving VPK. It's usually private companies who are doing the VPK, and in other parts of the state, that is the exact same way. And these early learning coalitions got their equivalent of ESSER money. It's not called ESSER, it's called child care funding. And they got record dollars there. So these early learning coalitions should actually have their own pot of money for a period of time that they could do it all day if they wanted to. So that would be a whole other line of look, VPK. Should it even be something Bay District Schools is doing, or should they let these private entities who specialize in it do it?
Yeah, it's become a special interest for sure. And I think, Dr. Ward, that we'll be breaking a tremendous story on pre-K and local politicians and what it's really all about. And it is going to be shocking and disappointing, but that is on my radar, and we're developing it. It is unbelievable. It'll be an unbelievable story. But I agree with you. It shouldn't be in there. And the fact that it's unusual should have a lot of people's attention. And that's all I'll say about that for now. But Dr. Ward, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It means a lot to me. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I agree with you. And I just want to inform the voters before April 20th, give them both sides of the story. But I think you're right on with this. Anything else that we should know?
I think that's it. I want to thank you for having me on and giving me your platform to educate the voters for this 45 minutes. It was fantastic. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Ward. Appreciate it. All right. If this is the first time you've been with me, normally I focus on what I call watchdog journalism and covering local corruption. I've been focused mostly in Panama City Beach for the past 6 years, and geez, that led to every member of Panama City Beach having to comply with a federal subpoena that was issued to the city on public corruption, questions involving how contracts are given out and all sorts of stuff. This was in August. And that investigation continues on, and things are starting to happen around Bay County now. So I'll be covering those kinds of things. Also, things people are going to be voting on, candidates. I'll have a few things to say about that. But before you go, this is where you can find me. This is the first time that we're doing live broadcast on YouTube as well. And I should tell you that that platform has a much better, in terms of being able to see the picture. It is much more clear. It streams better. And I haven't been very active on YouTube. And I've had the channel for at least, 10 years or so. But we will be. And so I hope that you'll subscribe. And remember, when we go live here, we're live on YouTube as well. And we'll be going live on other platforms now that we've got this new system up and running. So thank you so much for being with me. I don't know when I'm not doing a regular nightly broadcast, but I'll be bringing you some very, very interesting breaking stories soon. The first one will probably have to do with the city of Panama City that now has a couple of new whistleblower lawsuits. There's the looming anticipated whistleblower lawsuit that Panama City Beach, I think, will be getting soon with the former city manager who reported public corruption and was fired by the city council the very next day. Lots of stuff coming up right here. And thank you so much for being with me. I appreciate it. And I will see you soon.